Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Gail Mitchell, Executive Director of R&D and Hip Hop for Billboard Magazine. Glad to see you all here.
Yeah.
I saw this last night at home, and I've got a 26-year-old son, so I ducked out on the last part, but this is a hell of a film, very illuminating, very important film, I believe. So I thank HBO and AFI Film Festival for having me here. And right now I'm going to introduce the director, producer, editor, he was all over this thing, Tommy Oliver, founder, CEO of Confluential Films.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you come to be involved with this particular documentary?
Before I even get into that, I just want to. So Carmela's there, his mom, and his brother Brian.
Very nice.
And they've been so supportive throughout the entire process, and I could have never made it without them. I would have never made it without them. And so I just want to make sure that I acknowledge them. And grade A, they were there through everything. And so Bibby and George and Pete, and it's something that for me, I kind of got dumped. We, the Confluential team, we got dumped. I don't fucking know how much. Like it was, I really don't even know. It was so much footage. And it started with a very, very awkward meeting with the partners up there, the ringer. And we talked about this meeting recently. They had seen a film that I did called 40 Years a Prisoner, and they reached out, and what we felt was just a conversation between our companies about talking about something. And Bill wasn't scheduled to be on the call, but he hopped on about 60 seconds in. And then we talked a bit, and afterward he talked about, because they had already put together the idea of Music Box, the series, and they, for whatever reason, thought I was the right person to tell the story. And it was a really awkward conversation because my whole team was on as we were talking about it, but it was such an incredible story that I didn't understand the depths of it at that point. I really didn't.
You were familiar with his music?
I was, but I didn't know just how incredibly talented. I didn't know how incredibly talented he was. I knew he was good. Mm-hmm. I knew he was creative, but I didn't know that he was just unbelievable. Like unbelievable, and then such a sweet, kind, generous, goofy kid. Mm-hmm. And so I just didn't know, and so, but it really started with the ringer, and with Bill, with Noah and Sean, and HBO, and it was a conversation with them.
Okay. All right, so tell me how, because I know Carmela was one of the producers, Jody Gerson, Chairman, CEO of Universal Music Group, is one of the producers. Mark Cimino, some good people there, and it's such a important topic. Again, like you said, his amazing talent. It was just, I admire any wordsmith, but the way he could just stand up there and freestyle and just put words together. I sit sometimes and I'm stumbling, for a day or two on an intro, and here he is just reeling his stuff off. But how did you go from, was it always part of having a videographer there? Was there always in the back of the family's mind or his mind that he wanted to do a documentary, so the footage was there for you to go through, or?
So, myself and my co-editor Joe Kehoe, and Keith, who's there, who's head of documentaries and producer, we were very much the benefactors of Steve Cannon and Chris Long, and so they just shot and shot, and it was seemingly conceived as either a documentary or a vlog or just wanting to do stuff or behind the scenes footage, and we just started going through everything. And so it was a lot of stuff, and I don't think it was ever intended to be this, but because he should have still been here, and so that wasn't the idea. But it was really just they were shooting and shooting and shooting, and he was like in his music so vulnerable and open and just who he was, and he didn't hide anything, and he made a point to not hide anything on camera or in his music.
Right. Because I wondered after watching this now a second time, just some of the nuances, but it was always showing everything. There was no discussion about holding anything back. And I'm talking about the drug usage and other things. I mean, yeah.
That was also why it's structured the way it is. So it's meant to be in his own voice and through his own experience. And so it's not me telling somebody how to feel or me editorializing things and making this thing feel like something it's not. It's just his journey in his own words and through his eyes. And that was very important to how he wanted to go about telling the story.
Sitting also watching, it's just a roller coaster of emotions, you know, his amazing talent, his capacity for love with his mother, family, girlfriend.
He was a superstar.
Yes.
A giant who was in a committed relationship.
Yes.
I remember saying that in the beginning as somebody who's very happily married. I just thought that was also incredible and spoke to him and his character and the things that he valued.
And then at the same time, there's the sadness. There's anger on my part as it kept progressing, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the sort of thing that, look, their relationship was their relationship. Mm-hmm. And he loved her and she loved him, and whether anybody else approved of it or not didn't matter to him. And that's just what it was.
Yeah. So how was it for you emotionally as you were putting this together and then sitting there editing, you know, producing, doing everything? How did you deal with your emotions throughout this process?
It was really hard.
I can imagine.
It was really hard. And in the beginning, I remember just, it's sort of like getting a diary of somebody who passed away. And it was just me, like, in the beginning, and Joe was looking at stuff, but I was looking at stuff on my own. And it was just me at my office going through hundreds of hours of his life. Mm-hmm. And knowing what happened, it was heartbreaking, and it was hard. It really was. Because he was such a good kid, and I also, so when I was young, my mother was on drugs, and she was addicted to drugs from the time I was maybe 4 until 10 or so, and it was just a lot to process and to see so much of somebody who I really came to care about, but was no longer around, who I would never have a conversation with. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it also turned into this giant burden of making sure that I represented him appropriately and accurately.
Did you ever feel like he was looking over your shoulder as you were doing this?
He's everywhere. Like he's a part of it. There's no way that he's not a part of it.
Okay. Was there one thing during the process that you learned about him that surprised you? About him?
A couple things. So musically, I don't know of anybody at all anywhere like him. Somebody, I mean, you just look at the opening freestyle alone. It's fucking nuts. That's one of my it's one of the best songs I've ever heard, and it's something he made up at that point. That's it. And people was like, it's not even out of nowhere. It's just something that he did, and then afterward, he was like, okay, that's just what it was. And so, the ability to do something like that on the fly is unmatched. Unmatched. He's the GOAT freestyler. Thug said it. He was right. Like, he's the GOAT freestyler. Plain and simple. And so that surprised me. But also just how sweet and caring he was, because he would make a point when he had an audience of thousands or tens of thousands to make sure that he told them to follow their dreams. He told them to do what was important to them. He's a fucking 19-year-old kid. It's nuts. To make sure that he was using his platform to actually improve the lives of people, or try to, through his music, through his concerts, through all of it, and he was intentional about that. And the idea of somebody still choosing to do that while dealing with superstardom in a way that also is kind of without rival. He popped so damn quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody, like, who popped as quickly as he did. And to deal with all of those things, or to try to deal with all those things, and to try to navigate it and still be a kind person who's caring about other people, I didn't know that. And those two things really stood out.
Okay, what do you think his reaction would be? I know you didn't know him, but what do you think his reaction would be seeing this, the finished product?
I won't presume to answer or to know what he would think, but I will say that I'm very happy that his mother likes the film.
So we're down to the last couple of minutes. So anybody, a couple of questions, we can take 2 or 3 questions before we close out. Anybody have a question for Tommy? Do I see the hands? Yeah, please.
What was the most important message in the film to you?
It's a good question, but I don't know how to answer that. And the reason is that I think that that message will be different for everybody. And I think that it will very much depend on what people bring to it. And I also try to not force one thing or another, and so it's whatever works for them.
Any more questions? Yes.
Tommy, you have the unique ability to draw people in, to make him feel like he's your cousin, he's your brother. What tapped into you to bring that out in the film?
I don't know that that was me as much as just kind of getting out of the way and trying to make sure that I showed who he was appropriately and didn't dwell on one thing or another, and it was just really trying to intentionally represent him for who he was.
I think we're closing down.
So I was going to say
film.
thank you to AFI and HBO and The Ringer and my whole team at Confluential and my wife Cody, because this thing wouldn't have happened without her support and lots of other reasons, and Keith and Joe and 999.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Tommy, for this tremendous film, Juice WRLD Into the Abyss, and thank you again to HBO and AFI for this opportunity, and thank you guys for being here.